As you see here, I am going to start off by using this crop top hoodie that I had to gauge where I need to cut my shirt. So right there, I'm cutting off the bottom half of it. Now I'm going to cut off the collar part of the shirt, and I'm going to remove that. Now this is the part that I have after I did that. I'm going to fold it in half so it's as even as I can get it, because I'm going to want to cut it along the neckline eventually. So I want to make sure that I have a completely even shirt, because otherwise it's going to be lopsided. Okay, so I decided to cut a V neckline, so it's like a drop neckline in the front. And I know this is kind of unorthodox, but I'm using a hole puncher to punch the holes out because I'm gonna put some strings through this area. But I wanted the holes to be like perfectly round, so that's all I had on hand. I used a hole puncher and it went right through the fabric. So that's just what I had. Okay, so I'm going across and up. So what I do on one side, I did again on the other side. So I'm going kind of in a zigzag motion and putting holes in the shirt. You can do this up, across, it really doesn't matter, just as long as they are even. And if you want more up, you can, but I was kind of looking for the cleavage effect, so I made sure that I did them just 3 or 4 up. Now I want to cut 1-inch strips of the excess of the shirt that I had. So this is the bottom half of the shirt, and I cut about a 1/2 inch to 1-inch strip, and then of course it's in a circle shape, so I cut the ends off and pulled it so that it curled up, and now it looks like t-shirt string. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the strings in. You don't have to do this first. I just kind of did. I was doing this on a whim, no particular structure to it. I was just kind of going with my creativity. So yeah, I went ahead and just threaded this through, tied it up, and then I was ready to move on to the next part. Okay, with this part, you can put your favorite shirt against it and pattern it out. But I personally didn't have one that fit me the way I wanted to. So I just did a trace with my finger, kind of eyeballing it on where I wanted it to go. And I used a rotary cutter to cut it out in that shape. Now I decided to fold it in half because honestly, this is the best way to get proper symmetry. If you fold it in half and then you use one side to measure out where you're going to cut on the other side. So one side will kind of be your template or your pattern for where to cut on the other side. So make sure everything is straight and then use your rotary cutter again to cut it out. Okay, so here I wanted to get everything adjusted and lined up. To be honest with you, in this part, I was trying to figure out exactly whether I wanted it to be that wide or not, or whether I wanted to cut it down, which, as you will see, I did end up cutting it down because I didn't want it to look boxy. I wanted it to be kind of fitted up against my body. So as you see, I tied a bow with the strings, and then now I am working on flipping it inside out so I can go ahead and cut the side parts off and get ready for the sewing process. Okay, so here I'm going to cut this excess off, but I want to mark it first, and I took the shirt and I put it on off camera just to make sure that I was cutting the right amount off. You can use a shirt that you have on hand already, that's the shape that you like. I suggest that you do that, or you use a pattern, but make sure that you fit it up against your body to make sure. Okay, don't really just cut it willy-nilly and mess something up. So now I am folding it in half because when I cut it, I want to make sure that I cut the same amount on both sides. Okay, so as you see, I am cutting one side. I could have flipped it over and used the side that I cut as the pattern for the other side, just kind of cut along that same line, but I wasn't thinking about that at the time. So I just used the piece I cut off and then used that as the pattern for the other side. I just lined it up. But either way, you know, do it whatever way is comfortable for you. But I think looking back, the easiest way would have been to flip the shirt over the side that I cut, flip it over to the other side, and then go along that line. So now I'm going to line everything up because I'm getting ready to start sewing. I want everything lined properly, everything straight. I don't want anything to be crooked, so make sure you're careful with that. And I'm also going to cut the top of the sleeves off because I want to sew that a little further down, because I want to make sure I take that thick, bulky t-shirt seam off, and I want to tie a string there at the top. Okay, so I'm going to start going ahead and getting everything pinned down. It's t-shirt material, so I don't want anything to shift or move. So I'm going to pin down the sides on both sides, so when I sew, there's no moving. All right, so please excuse the little hands and the little toy that's about to be on this shirt. That is from my son. Motherhood never stops. So yeah, we have a little visitor on top of the shirt. Please excuse it. So now we're going to finish pinning down the second side to get everything lined up. And then I'm going to mark the shoulders here so I can cut that area, and when I cut it, sew it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start sewing. Make sure you always do a back stitch first. Very important. And I am using the Brother SE600 to sew this. So yeah, if you want to, you can use a needle and thread. You can use spray adhesive if you need to. I suggest that you don't, but if you just so happen to have to, then you can try your hand at it if you need to. Okay, so I'm using a zigzag stitch here because that's a little bit more flexible and stretchy, I guess. So I'm using a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to do that on both sides. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and sew the sleeves down. This is the top of the sleeve. I wanted to make sure that I sewed that part because I'm gonna cut the seam off, because I want to make sure that it's flexible, because I'm gonna tie a ribbon right there. Not quite a ribbon, but a piece of the shirt is gonna go right there on the side. So make sure you do that on both sides. And cut this part for the string that you're going to tie at the top. Okay, so we're coming to the end here. I'm tying up the sleeves at the top and making sure that I cut all the strings and everything, so everything is neat and finished. I appreciate you guys for watching this video. This shirt turned out great. I hope you guys use these techniques to make your own shirt, use your own creativity, and whatever you come up with is great as long as it fits. This was the shirt in the beginning, and this is the shirt now. I hope you guys enjoy this. Thank you for coming to Marcela.